Hello everyone, and welcome back to Konix. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that affects almost everyone. Whether you're a car enthusiast or just a daily commuter, we're talking about automakers versus tariffs and the hidden costs of the cars we drive every day. You see that shiny new car in the showroom? It has a price tag, right? But what if I told you the real cost isn't what's printed on the sticker? Behind every gleaming hood and roaring engine, there's a hidden battle being fought, a complex web of trade routes, international factories, and government policies that ultimately decides who wins and, more importantly, who pays. This is the story of how tariffs are silently shaping the future of the global car industry. For decades, the world's biggest automakers have built their empires on a foundation of global supply chains. It's a beautifully intricate dance of efficiency and economics. Think about it. Parts might be designed in Japan, manufactured in Germany, assembled in Mexico, and finally, sold right here in the United States. This system was designed to keep costs down and innovation high. But what happens when that delicate dance is interrupted? When tariffs enter the picture, those carefully crafted connections start to tighten, and the whole system feels the strain. So, what exactly are tariffs? In simple terms, they're taxes placed on imported goods. The idea behind them is to protect local industries by making foreign products more expensive, encouraging consumers to buy domestic. It sounds good in theory, right? Protect local jobs, boost the national economy. But in the real world, especially in a globally connected industry like automaking, the reality is far more complicated. Tariffs often end up raising costs for everyone involved, from the car manufacturers all the way down to you, the customer. Let's break down how this happens. When a country decides to impose tariffs on essential materials like steel and aluminum, or even on fully assembled imported vehicles, automakers feel the impact almost immediately. These higher material costs don't just stay with the manufacturer. They create a ripple effect that flows through the entire system, from the initial design phase all the way to the final delivery at the dealership. Imagine a $10,000 tariff is placed on an imported vehicle. What are the consequences? Well, there are a few possibilities, and none of them are great for the consumer. The automaker might pass that extra cost directly on to you, meaning higher prices at the dealership. Or they might try to absorb the cost of themselves, which leads to reduced profits. And when profits shrink, companies have less money to invest in research and development, which means slower innovation and fewer cool new features in future models. So, either you pay more now, or you get less innovation later. And here's the thing about trade. It's rarely a one-way street. When one nation introduces tariffs, it's almost guaranteed that other countries will respond with tariffs of their own. A small trade ripple quickly turns into a massive global wave, creating what many call a trade war. In recent years, we've seen this play out on the world stage. American, European, and Asian automakers have all had to navigate an increasingly complex and unpredictable trade landscape. For example, U.S. tariffs on imported vehicles and parts have pushed some foreign companies to consider moving production to the United States. While this might sound like a win for local jobs, it often comes at a much higher cost. Building a new factory is incredibly expensive, and those costs inevitably find their way into the price of the final product. Meanwhile, other major players like China have adjusted their own tariffs, influencing where global automakers decide to set up their plants and how they price their vehicles for export. For global giants like Toyota, BMW, and Ford, this has turned into a high-stakes balancing act between economics and geopolitics. They're constantly forced to weigh a series of difficult questions. Where should we build our factories to minimize costs? Where are the best markets to sell our cars? And how can we absorb or avoid these new tariff costs without losing our competitive edge? It's a strategic chess game played on a global scale, where one wrong move can cost billions. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more complex, let's add another layer. The electric vehicle revolution. As the world pivots towards a cleaner, electric future, tariffs can act as a major roadblock, slowing down the global flow of innovation. A huge number of essential battery components, like lithium, cobalt, and other rare earth materials, are sourced from different countries all across the globe. If trade barriers go up, the cost of these materials sky. This can slow down the development of new battery technology and drive up the price of EVs, making them less accessible for the average person. So, how are automakers responding to this new reality? They're getting smarter and more creative. They're looking for solutions to build resilience into their operations. One major strategy is expanding localized production. Instead of relying on a single global supply chain, they're building more factories in the regions where they sell their cars to reduce their dependency on imports. They're also diversifying their supply chains, sourcing parts and materials from a wider range of countries to avoid being too vulnerable to a trade dispute with any single nation. Furthermore, companies are investing heavily in regional trade partnerships and focusing on developing cleaner technologies that might qualify for government incentives or exemptions from certain tariffs. This strategic shift isn't just about business. It's about survival. The next generation of automakers isn't just building cars. They're building entire economic ecosystems designed to withstand political and economic shocks. Most experts agree that while tariffs can offer some short-term gains for specific local industries, they often backfire in the long run. When production costs rise across the board, innovation inevitably slows down, and a country's global competitiveness can weaken. In an industry like automaking, which is driven by precision, efficiency, and constant, even a seemingly small policy change can send massive shockwaves through the entire market. The road ahead is definitely uncertain. But one thing is crystal clear. Tariffs don't just affect trade agreements signed in quiet government offices. They directly shape the very cars we drive, the prices we pay for them, and the health of the industries we all depend on. In this global race toward a smarter, cleaner, and more connected automotive future, automakers must learn to navigate not just the roads, but also the borders that divide us. Because in the end, success won't come to the companies that try to fight against the tide of global change. It will come to those who are agile enough to adapt, smart enough to evolve, and resilient enough to drive right through the challenges. Thank you so much for joining us today on Konix. We hope this gave you a new perspective on the hidden forces shaping the auto industry. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. We'll see you in the next one.